Thank you, Katerina, and welcome, Lena and Raffaele. Let me talk a bit about the history of the estate, and then Christian's going to talk a little bit about what we do in the vineyards and everything else. So when we bought the estate in 2003, we just didn't realize the richness of the history of the estate. And over the years, we've learned more and more. And what we found out that 4 million years ago, actually, the farm, which is now 500 meters above sea level, was actually about 150 meters below sea level. The sea was over the top of it. And how did we discover this? Well, a couple of years ago, we noticed a group of people doing something strange on the fields next to the estate. And we stopped and asked them what they were doing. And it was a team of archaeologists from Perugia University who were digging up the fossilized remains of sperm whales. And they found 3 sperm whales, and I think one is in Rome, one is in Perugia now, and then the smaller one is in the museum in Alerona. And what they were particularly looking for was a substance called ambergris, which is like whale vomit. But it's one of the most expensive commodities in the world. And it's what they use in perfumes to make perfumes yellow. So they found some fossilized remains of the ambergris. And actually, that's what gave rise to one of the names of our wine, ambergris, which we called floating gold. History goes back a long way. And then more recently, it was part of the, it was used as a customs post between the, on the borders of the Papal State and the Republic of Florence. And it was actually used as a customs post overlooking the South Valdichiana Valley. So a lot of history to the place, and a lot we continue to discover. In fact, Christian met some people in the local village who worked on the farm. I can't remember what year, Christian. And
in the 50s.
In the 1950s, and talked about what the farm was like there. And why don't you talk, Christian, about what they said about the place?
So it's a place, and everyone knows about this place. Many people worked here, lived here. Houses were shared by many families, so many people have to share a story about Torre Bisenzio and the other 2 villas that are on the estate. And we were speaking about all the fields where in ancient times the vineyard were cultivated, where the olive trees were, the name of all the fields. And when the farm was bought, so in 2003, no vineyard was in the farm. And so we planted the actual 3 vineyards we have. We planted in the one of the 3 places that were considered the best places where they had the wine before. And creating the second vineyard, we also discovered there was 1 plant left from a very ancient vineyard planted perhaps in 1930. So we speaking with this man, so we had another few places where we would like to plant, and where in the past also vineyards has been grown.
So one of the things we've learned through all this is trying to be true to the history and be authentic in what we do. So very much using indigenous grapes as the base of our wines. So it taught us the richness of the history and the richness of being authentic, but also about being sustainable. And so, we've also got on the farm 125 Quinina cows. We do our own grass-fed organic beef, where we've got the entire cycle of the animals and the vineyards. But it's been organic now for 15 years, Christian?
No, it was even both organic, the farm. So it's organic since 20 years or not less than 20 years. And it's already now more than 1 year that we started to go to biodynamic. So we started to spray 500, but we started slowly. So we started from the vineyards. Now we have all the equipment, and we are going to do all the farm. This is also required in order to be biodynamic certified. So all the farm has to be treated in a biodynamic way.
So everything we try and do is with authenticity, sustainability, and quality in mind. So all of the electricity used on the farm comes from the solar panels, which are on top of the stalla. All the water is sourced from Pozzo on the land. So everything we try and do has that authentic but modern and sustainable twist. And that goes to the way in which the type of plants we've done and the way in which we do the vineyard. So do you want to talk about the vineyards, Christian, and what we're doing there?
Yes. So we have a traditional way of cultivating the vineyards. They are planted with a width of 2.5 meters and a distance between the plant between 90 centimeters and 1 meter. We use spruce cordon and guyot. So that's, let's say, very normal. And this is because of the how the plants react to pruning. So we have the white varieties, mainly Grechetto and Sauvignon, and also Pinot. It likes to be pruned with guyot, and all the rest of the varieties, they are pruned with spruce cordon. Where we put much attention is how we work the soil. So we have to pay much attention on the vigor of the plant. Where we see the vigor becomes too strong, then we decide to leave grass. So we do inerbimento, and we leave a grass coverage. And where we see perhaps there is some weakness, we used to work the soil and give some strength back to the plants. Another approach we started now already a few years ago is in order to reduce, because what we are allowed to use is copper and sulfur, but copper is anyway a heavy metal, so we try to reduce that, and we used to add argilla, it's a zeolite, and this allows to reduce the amount of copper used during the year. And we don't like to treat with the calendar. We know when the diseases are probably more easy to appear, and then we try to protect the vineyards not with calendar. So we spray, we try to reduce our spraying, and we are always with half of the amount that would be allowed in the year. So what we do care a lot is how we work in the vineyard on the plants in order to get a good quality. So we keep to try to get a very low production. We stay around 4,000 to 5,000 bottles a hectare. So this means we stay around 5,000 kilos, 6,000 kilos of grapes per hectare. So if it's a good year where the plants would produce more, we used to do a green harvest. That means to select the grapes and leave just the best bunches for the real harvest. Another thing we do is to take off the leaves on the part of the plant where the sun rises, in order to allow the sun to touch the bunch. This also creates very nice flavors in the grapes. And in this way, we are happy with the grapes we produce and are sure we have a good product to start with in the winery. And anyway, in the winery, we don't want to do too much in the winery. Our aim is to have the best grapes as possible. So sometimes, because of the different varieties we have, it takes 7 weeks to start from the first variety so end of August, and till mid of October, it's our harvest time. And if we are going also for a metodo classico, a sparkling wine, then it can also take like 2 months for the entire harvest, because then we start around the mid of August to harvest the Pinot Noir.
There was a question from Lena, I think.
Yes, I have a question. In your region and area, which are the biggest problems, the challenge, considering the climate hail, fog? Is it something special?
The climate is changing, so we never had hail. This year we had it twice, but we were lucky. We had like 10 to 15% of damage, and it was early in the season, so we didn't have problems of mold.
Mold.
Yes.
So we were lucky this year. And a good thing of our climate is that we have a good excursion in temperature. So not too high temperatures during the day, they can reach 35 degrees, but it cools down good in the night. And this allows the plants to don't burn the sugars during the night. So we can have also 15 degrees in temperature between night and day. And that's good for the plants. And no particular problems in the diseases. They can change from season to season, but there is not a high pressure because we are high on the hills, so we don't have problems of moisture. And the soils, they are where we have actually the vineyards. It's not clay soils, so they're fresh and they have enough water for the summer season. The plants are not too stressed. It's a soil full in stones, so it's a very particular soils because it was where the state is where the rivers were running into the sea. So it's full of round stones and it's a good mixture. The texture is very mixed of the soils.
And as Christian said, a lot of our work goes on in the vineyard, and so we're always trying to learn. So one of the things we're trying to do at the moment is to think, how can technology help us? So, most of the technology these days are used for large vineyards, where people can't walk around, but actually the technology gives you extra eyes. So we're talking to people about, the satellites that go over our farm every 3 days and how they can use that data. How do we use drones? So the more visibility we can get on what's going on in the vineyard will just give us more and more tools to be able to manage that vineyard better.
How does this, you combine the technology with the biodynamic, it's two different worlds?
Apparently it's completely different worlds, yes, because biodynamic usually uses sensibility as an instrument to know what to do. But we understood it's also important to have good instruments to understand, because we want to focus, perhaps for our top wine, we want to understand exactly what's the best combination of plants in terms of variety, rootstock, soil, and position in the vineyard. And the technologies can be a very good help for that, because we are anyway doing a great work having many varieties. We used to do the vinification separate for each variety, so we have to check very frequently, so 1 or twice a week also, the sugar content, acidity of each single variety to decide the best moment for the harvest. So we do a lot in a biodynamic way in terms of observation, but if we can get the help from technology, we would accept it. Perhaps it could open us the eyes in order perhaps to see something we were not able to see.
And I think that's exactly, I don't think it's inconsistent, but actually a great question. And the way we see it is, it's just an extra pair of eyes on what's going on in the vineyard. And more important that, the satellite goes over every 3 days, so it can actually see the changes going on in the vineyard, using data. So we don't think it's inconsistent. It's just an extra pair of eyes to make sure we get that quality and focus in the managing the vineyards.
So
considering the climate changes is maybe a good idea, because now the climate is so extreme, so confusion. So maybe you need some other tools to understand it.
Because part of this technology should also help to tell you the moment to treat the plants in order to avoid diseases. So we now know, we know our farm, we know our vineyards, But if this can allow to reduce one spraying, we were glad to use the system, because perhaps we say no, it can be danger for the vineyard, let's spray. And if this system says no, there is no problem, perhaps we can check if the system works and try to use the system and reduce the spraying, so the pollution and release of heavy metal in the soil.
We'd love to tell you how it's going to help. It's a bit of an experiment. You know, we know what we want to try and do. We're learning, and we'll learn over the next couple of years how to use it, how not to use it, and how to get the best out of it. So we'll give you another answer in maybe 2 years after we've had some more experience of it.
Christian, I have a question. What is the first grape variety you bring in cellar that you pick up or harvest?
It's a Pinot Noir.
Okay.
If we do it as a sparkling wine, so it's the very first. And if we do it as a still wine, it's also one of the first, because the other one is the Sauvignon Blanc.
Okay. Actually, the question was more oriented in between, Sauvignon Blanc and Grechetto. So it goes inside
Grechetto,
first,
it can have like 10 days, 2 weeks later, usually in ripening.
Okay, perfect. And so there is only one sparkling wine produced by Torre Bisenzio.
Yes, because we planted, now it's 5 years ago, Pinot Noir, and the first year we harvest, we decided, what are we going to do with these grapes? And we said, let's try a sparkling wine, because Pinot Noir requires a good maturity of the plant in order to express its potential. And so we said, let's try to have a sparkling wine. The second year, the second harvest, we tried to do also a still wine. Happy, but not so happy. So
there is something to do more. There is a lot.
So we are going on with sparkling wine. We're always experimenting what's the best to do.
Is a metodo classico, did you say?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
I have a question. Pinot Noir is not so common in your area, or why did you
not. There are the vineyards with Pinot Noir, but we said let's try it. So we have this vineyard at 520 meters over the sea level, and we said it could adapt in this terroir. So we wanted to experiment. We always want to experiment. It's also shown by the big amount of varieties we have, because we have a big base of local varieties, so mainly Sangiovese and Grechetto. But in addition, we planted also Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot, Merlot, Canaiolo. So we try to find the best blend for this terroir. And
the Pinot Nero was a little bit of an experiment to your point, Lena, about climate change. If it was a bit of an insurance against, well, if the temperatures are going up, let's see how the Pinot Nero does as a plant, and maybe it'll have more robustness as the climate changes. So it was about that sustainability and your point about the climate change, and trying to just experiment around how to do that.
Okay.
Should we talk about some of the wines?
Yes.
Which one do you want to start with, Christian?
Usually you start with white wines.
Yeah, let's start with white wines. Why don't you start with the Bianco, then do the Ambrus? Yeah, let's start with
the Grechetto. It's Bianco di Bisenzio. It's our entry level, and it has a 90% of Grechetto and a 10% of Sauvignon Blanc. Both varieties, they have been harvested separately, fermented separately, and then after tasting, we decided the blend. And in 19, we decided to have this blend 90% Grechetto and 10% of Sauvignon.
Is it all the same every year? Is it the same mix every year, 90% Grechetto?
No, it can change, not too much, because in order to have the variety on the bottle, you have to stay with not less than 85%. of this variety. So we can play in this range.
So what we're trying to do is establish the style of it, and Christian will talk about the other wines, but fundamentally they are indigenous grapes, and then we use the more international varieties to just try and blend. And as you know, because of we're organic, we're very much depending on the weather every year. So we want to get a consistent style, but because of the changing climatic conditions every year, we just blend at the margin to try and get the consistency of style. Will never be perfect, but close.
So, and this Grechetto, I love it. So it's a everyday wine. It's a perfect wine. It's easy, but it's even complex. You have the good minerality. It's structured. It's long enough in the mouth, so it's has a nice color, and you can have it very easily with cheeses and with fish. So it's easy to drink, but not it's anyway a complex wine, so I like it. And this is only stainless steel, so it's nothing particular done on this wine. It's 13.5 in alcohol. Yes.
Any comments, Raffaele or Lena?
Nose, I love it. I am doing the input on the wine, so I can write it right now. But I think Christian described really well. It's about the freshness, but you cannot see from the beginning it's a simple wine. There is something more. There is a good complexity. There is some kind of spiciness that also go up, which I like it. And it's really well played between the green part, which give a little bit of nobility, of purity, of the elegance. An essential wine, but there is the right ripeness, which I like.
Okay, Lena?
Yeah, I agree. I also like the freshness, the acidity, the minerality, but for me, when I tasted it the first time, I thought, is it only 10% Sauvignon Blanc? It seems like Sauvignon is a bit more dominant than Grechetto.
Yeah.
So you had this feeling, Lena?
Yeah.
Because when we blended, we tried very easily. We said, let's try it with the 5% of Sauvignon, 10%, 15%. And we like the 10% blend because it gave anyway good flowers and some more complexity to the nose. And because Grechetto, it's a good wine for the mouth, but lacks a bit in flavors. And we tried to adding some Sauvignon. But you have a very good nose.
Yes, and when I had it in the glass and taste again after half an hour, it really opened up. It was fantastic. So my recommendation is to let it in the glass a while before you drink it.
Yeah,
it's a very versatile wine. I think you can drink. Of course, you can drink it fresh direct, but you can also wait a bit, and it's yes, it's easy drinking but complex, I would say.
And what we always try.
The Grechetto one itself can be a little bit heavy and dull, and the Sauvignon Blanc gives it that touch of freshness and that we like.
The creamy texture, it came out more from the Grechetto or from Sauvignon, do you think, Christian?
It can be Sauvignon, but
the percentage, not the right percentage, like you say, it can be the difference.
Yes, it can be so, but I'm not able to tell you. But perhaps you can tell it tasting the Ambris, so the 100%.
Of course.
Sauvignon.
And do you keep in the same way on the lees, both the varieties, or there is one varieties you can keep more on the lees?
No, Grechetto is treated in a very conventional way. So we do the specciatura, I don't know how you say in English. So we keep it immediately clean. We used to have a fermentation, so we fill the juice, grape juice, and after in the tank, after 24 hours, we move the juice, we clean what is fallen down in the bottom, and we continue to keep a temperature around 15 degrees. So the fermentation will last around 2 weeks. We do that in order to don't lose the flavors of the wine. So we try to have a very low in temperature fermentation.
So that question, I don't know if Lena's got any other question, but it naturally leads us on to talk about the Ambris, which is our new wine. And because your question absolutely is relevant to the Ambris. Christian, do you want to explain?
Yes, so Ambris is an experiment working through the fairs. We had already in our mind, we wanted to experiment something new, and we saw all this amphorae. Now we have 3 amphorae di coccio pesto. So these are like cotto amphorae, not coated, so they're permeable to air. And we did this first experiment on Ambris. So we used this amphora, and we put, this is a 365 liters amphora. We put the grapes crushed, so with the skins, the juice, all in the amphora, and we left it, so from end of August to beginning of March in these conditions. We created also another bit of Sauvignon. So we started to doing conventional stainless steel fermentation, and at half of the fermentation we took out a part of the Ambris and we put it in barrels. So we had 3 completely different wines obtained, and we tasted during the season. It was very particular. So amphora did not become orange wine. It kept anyway. It's not an oxidated wine. It's very bright in color, but it had a fantastic complexity given by the skins. So there was like 6 months of skin contact, and also very complex became the Barrique Sauvignon. We did batonnage for 2 months, and then we did the blend in end of February, beginning of March. We started to taste. We tasted always each single wine to understand the evolution, and then we tried to do the blend, but we didn't have to do much, so we just blended everything together, and we got this fantastic product. We are very proud about, because I think there are only few wines that are as particular as Ambris.
Yeah.
For
I
me,
really like this wine. For me, it really shows another side of Sauvignon Blanc. Normally, Sauvignon Blanc is, you easily recognize it, but here it's more complex. I think the blend is super. And the Barrique, is it old or new?
Old, very old Barrique. We didn't want to give a Barrique note to the wine, so we used like 6 or 7 use of the Barrique. And now we obtained this wine, and it went over an evolution. It had lychee, passion fruit, mint. I never could taste so good in a wine. Now in this phase, we should have like a honey period and yellow peach, orange peach. Last year it had a white peach, and it's always developing to a new different wine with a great minerality, a very good acidity as in the Grechetto, and for me it's very, very long in the mouth. You have this great complexity that is very long lasting in the mouth. And this is not only like for cheeses, fish, it's such a complex and strong wine that you can have it with everyone you want.
Lena, this was a wine you liked, wasn't it?
This one, yes. Yes, and also because for me wine is so much more than just a drink, because then I saw, for example, I'm not a big fan of Sauvignon Blanc, so wow, this is a Sauvignon Blanc I really like. It's and I'm also interested to see how for me it's super perfect now, but also I'm curious because of the complexity how it will evolve. What do you think, Christian? What will happen if you keep the wine a couple of years?
I think it has enough acidity, enough alcohol to be a long-lasting wine. And I'm also very curious to see what can happen, because this minerality, it's close to be a salty wine. That's incredible to have such a minerality. It's like eating a stone. It's very curious.
But
and
it has all the
particular.
components to evolve a lot. So it's be interesting. Yes.
Raffaele,
Yes.
you tried it for the first time. Any thoughts?
Outstanding wine. I agree with Lena and with the description. Is this, did you say, the first vintage you made it?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's perfectly done with the good vibration, the right density. Against the Bianco di Bisenzio, according to me, from the middle palate, it changed completely. It goes in a vertical direction that give you a little bit of freshness on the palate, a little bit of austerity, which I like it, which also will give you the idea of how the wine can actually age. I like it a lot.
Thank you. But it's an interesting story, and as Christian said, this was a bit of an experience with the Cocciapesto tank, and now we've gone from 1 to 3. So we're going to do a few more experiments with the Cocciapesto to see. It gives us a very different type of wine. So what else can we do differently with it?
We will try
like
to also
experiment. We like it.
on red wines, and we will
Yes,
start
I'm
to
so
use it.
impressed because the mix of these vessels, these 3 vessels, I have never heard before, and it's the first time, and it's just perfect from the beginning.
Yes,
Good work in the
we
vineyard.
are lucky, Elena, but we are very happy, and we have the second now. It's the second year we did it, and it has anyway also this year a very good potential. So
Yes.
let's see, because Sauvignon comes out with all the flavors the next spring after you do it. But already now it's nice to taste it sometimes in the winery to see how it's developing.
Yes.
Should we move on to the reds? And so Umbris, the name goes after the floating gold from the Wales that I explained to you, the ambergris. So that's the nature of it. And let's try the Pugnalone first. And the name of it comes from the local village. It's the sort of festival at the end of the season that the farmers celebrate. So again, staying with that authenticity, we've used names which have a local flavor. So Pugnalone is the local festival after the harvest. So Christian, do you want to explain the wine? I've done the name.
Yes, so it's a blend. The big part of it is Sangiovese, blended with Merlot, Syrah, and Cabernet Sauvignon. This comes all from the first vineyard planted in 2005. So, and all the plants are trimmed with the spruce cordon. All the varieties are harvested separately, and perhaps in a few seasons it's possible that you have already 2 varieties harvested together and fermented together, but usually we try to have them separate to have the best moment. And so I don't remember exactly the percentage, but it should be like 60% of Sangiovese, and the rest is Merlot, Syrah, and Cabernet Sauvignon. And this wine, so it's mainly done in stainless steel, and this was a year we were a bit critic about what we were doing, and we moved the part of the pure Sangiovese that was already in oak, and we blended it also with some oaky wine. So anyway, old barrels, not so oaky, but you can have some barrel notes in this wine. So 16. So Lena, you have some questions.
Yes, it was maybe you were just going to tell it. 16, the vintage. Can you say something? Because I found there was a good acidity in this wine.
Yes, it was a easy season. We had some rain more than usually, Not too much, but so plants were not stressed, and perhaps it's the most common expression. It's like an average year for this region. So plants that were not stressed, you can have a good amount of fruits, red fruits, cherries in this wine, and some spicy, given perhaps mainly from the international varieties. And what we perhaps forgot to tell is that we don't used to release wines that are not ready. So you have now vintage 16, because we used to release wines when they are ready to be released. So we have already Pugnalone 17, but we will taste it, continue to taste, and then we'll decide when it's ready to be released. So this was for us ready to be released.
And we're very happy with this wine because we haven't put many wines in for awards. And this was one of the first we put in for, let's see, a competition, because we wanted to judge the quality of our wines. And we put it into the US sommelier competition, and it came back with a gold label. So we were very happy with that. I should have mentioned earlier, the Bianco, the Grighetto, got a silver label. So we were very pleased. The first time we put some wines into a competition, we got some recognition for the wines. But this one particularly was pleasing, good year. And, as Christian said, we waited to release it, and nice to get some feedback on where it pitches against the competition. What did you think, Raffaele?
Talking about Pugnalone, right?
Yeah.
I just tasted. Is this one with the cork Diam, right?
Yeah.
It should be Diam, yes.
I found it a little bit ripe, really ripe on the nose, which can be the vintages maybe in Umbria. And the tannins a little bit dry. For this, I asked about the cork. I like it, the texture and how light is when going mouth. So you can taste it really easily, but still keep some good energy and complexity, like we said. But to be honest, I'm a little bit critic in particular way on this label. If it's a perfect bottle, because sometimes, to be honest, it's not TCA, it's not about cork, but can be some deviation. Okay. So maybe I prefer don't write about it.
Okay, Lena, your comments?
Yes, I like this one. I like the texture and because the fruit is very intense, right? But the body, the texture is very light, and I like this combination. And as I said, the acidity is quite fresh. And this is my question, because the wines in general has this, even the red, the minerality and the saltiness. Does it come from this typical soil you have?
I'm convinced it is like this, Lena. Yes, it's the only answer I could give, because all our wines have this good minerality, and I think it's comes from the soil.
And going back to Raffaele's comment, Raffaele, I find with this one the same as we talked about earlier with the Grighetto. If you leave this one open for half an hour to an hour and breathes a little bit, it changes its personality quite a lot.
I will do it. I am in the office for the next afternoon. Okay. I will be really happy to go back and to see the evolution. I agree. I heard about also the story, and it came up with a good classification. So I'm pretty sure it can change on my glass. Can you just remember me again the blend, please?
Sangiovese, not less than 60%, perhaps some more. Merlot, Syrah, and Cabernet Sauvignon.
And
sorry, Lena.
No, you're just talking about this. Leave it in the glass for a while. I did it with all the 4 wines, and in my opinion, all of the wines need a time in the glass.
It's 2016. Yes, it's so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, should we move to the last one, the Sangiovese? Again, Christian, do you want to talk about the wine?
Very easy blend. It's 100% Sangiovese. And in particular, this is a variety where we have more attention. So we have much attention in all the vineyard, but Sangiovese is where we take most care. So we have a very low production in grapes of the Sangiovese. And Sangiovese is the variety we usually reach the harvest on around the 10th or the 15th of October. So it's a very difficult, it's the last variety we have in the farm. And it's a fermented stainless steel. So we just check the temperature that should stay around 25, 28 degrees, not more than this. And it's even quick, so around 10 to 15 days. And then we just move it, we press it, and we move it in another tank. And we leave it till the next spring. Then we do part of it, we move it in barriques, always old barriques, and part it's moved between barriques and stainless steel. But so the one Raffaele is tasting now, this is the 2015 vintage. And I think if people know Sangiovese and they could do a blind test, they would say this is Sangiovese. So starting from the color and all the flavors, very happy that we were able to represent the typical Sangiovese.
And it looks really good to Sangiovese.
Yes, it was exactly the same. I thought, oh, this is a textbook Sangiovese.
Yes.
Yes.
And do you say anything about the year 2015? What type of year it was? Because it was very different from 2016, wasn't it?
No, it's a bit drier, but not stressful for the plants. So it's another, let's say, average season, nothing particular during the growing season. And so nothing in comparison to like a drought of 2017 or a lot of rain like 2018. So it was more common season, vintage 2015.
So, Lena, any comments, thoughts, or Raffaele, any comments, thoughts?
Lena.
It was, I think, 2 weeks since I tasted it, but I brought my tasting notes here, and yes, it's for me it's a classic Sangiovese, and I like it. Yes, it's really how to say? Yes, it's both a bit rustic and it's also soft, modern. It's I think for a Swedish taste, this is a perfect wine. Because it's not too much tannins, too much. It's very easy drinking and you don't feel the oak. It's a very versatile wine, I think.
We like, in fact, the big balance this wine has, because it's very round. It has tannins, it has acidity, it has flavors, but no real peak in these characters. It's a very balanced and easy to drink. So even the length in the mouth.
But it's not a banal wine. It's a serious, easy drinking wine. And I like this combination.
Yeah.
Raffaele, any comments, thoughts?
I love it. Again, this I really like it. It reminds me about really nice Sangiovese from the fresh area, like can be Montalcino when we talk about northern part, or otherwise really close to my area. There are really interesting Sangiovese in Valdarno di Sopra with a good temperature, excursion of temperature, which give really an interesting character. There is again the green touch, which I like it, but a green touch which is perfectly ripe, if we can say this kind of ossimoro, which give the wine a three-dimensional aspect. So you can taste it. There is a balsamic character, there is freshness, but there is the right way to treat the grapes, to treat the Sangiovese. Really elegant. It reminds me also the fermentation with how do you say, a low temperature between 24, 25 degrees instead of 28, which give you more stronger character. Quite floral also. It's really good one.
So it's very important to us, you know, we couldn't be an Umbria and Tuscany winery without a classic Sangiovese. So, you know, everything's, if we can't produce a classic Sangiovese, then, you know, where's the storyline gone? But, and we're very interested in the new vineyard. We've also planted more Sangiovese, but we've also planted Canaiolo. So we're interested to see how we can use that and blend that, again, building on that authentic, you know, but we're very happy with the quality of the wine so far, so we can continue to try and experiment on the basis that our experiments are producing good wines.
Agree, Mike. And did you see Canaiolo? Keep going, because I just came back from Chianti Colli Fiorentino. I think Canaiolo, or 100% pure Canaiolo, or in a touch blended, it's really interesting, gives something more. So it's the right choice, to be honest, according to me.
So how do you think that these wines, if we would talk about more market-wise, do you think these wines would be appealing to the Scandinavian audience, and also Raffaele has more experience with the American audience?
Yes, without problem, I'm sure, because they will love it. Maybe the first one that you can present, like the Bianco di Bisenzio, which is a little bit more fat, and that kind of small perception of the alcohol, they can start to open their mind. You know what I mean? They like it, actually. And then you can also bring them their attention moving into a Sauvignon Blanc made in Umbria. Also, why not using big names such as Cervaro della Sala, and says how they play with a small percentage of different international grapes, and to say, you know what, they opened the street, but in a small quantity, I can maybe even make a better wine. So I think yes, it will help. And the Sangiovese is really a classic one. We didn't talk too much about the price point, but I think with the right average, the right ranking, they can really appreciate it.
I agree, and I think also for the Scandinavian market, this is up here. People are very curious about other regions, and here you have grapes that you know, but Umbria, haven't tasted so much from Umbria, and this is interesting. And for both of them, the Sangiovese is, I would say, more this one. I like it. It's more easy drinking direct than Chianti. Chianti can be sometimes a bit hard. And yes, again, for the Sauvignon Blanc, I like the other people who say, like me, I'm not so fond of Sauvignon Blanc, but taste this. And I think both of the white goes very well with the fish dishes we have up here. So I think they have a good potential. And also, as they are organic, of course. That's very important in Sweden.
Yes.
Well, we continue to experiment, as we've just said, but we've got to produce wines, as Katrina was pointing out, which suit the market. So it's very important to us that we get that balance right between what people want to drink and the authenticity and the story that connects it together. So that's what we work very hard on. Is to connect all of those things together. So.
Anything else anyone has to add? Anything, Raffaele, Lena, anything you came to think of before we sum it up?
No, maybe just a curiosity for me, if Christian can remember it. In 2016, which grape variety suffered a little bit more? Between there is in the blend.
They didn't suffer, so it was an average year, and we had no variety suffered. We had even a bit more rain than usual, so no stress on the plants, really.
Okay. Because, in comparison of Montalcino, but of course it's another terroir, it's completely another direction. There are kilometers between the two reality. The 16 is quite, 15 and 16 are maybe the two greatest vintages they never seen before. The 15 it's much more homogeneous. And the 16 a little bit more of heterogeneity. There are producers who pick up at the grapes like 1 week before, and they had this kind of a little bit of dry tannins. Who waited a little bit more, that again was everything in line with the maturation, acidity, pH, and the polyphenolic texture. They made maybe the greatest wine.
Okay, but so our approach to decide the right moment for the harvest, it's easier. It's based just on 3 parameters. What we check is sugar content and acidity, but what we really check is the flavor. So sugar content, it's always, our wines are always over 13 in alcohol, but what we check for is to have a good acidity and the right flavors for each single variety. So this is how we decide for the right moment. Sugar content, it's just we try to don't go too much over, because reducing the productivity of the plants, it's easy that you have too much sugar in the bunches you leave, but we take care to have the best flavors and the right acidity when we pick.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. So, I mean, I think it's been a really good discussion. And what do you think, Mike? Do you want to give any last words?
No, look, we're very grateful for the feedback. We are, it goes back to where we started. We're trying to produce, good quality, authentic, sustainable wines, and and getting that balance right we need the feedback. So we appreciate, Raffaele, Lena, your comments, your feedback. We will certainly look at the corks, Raffaele. I heard you on the corks. We're trying to produce, good quality wines which have an authenticity and, to Lena's point, represent Umbria, because it's not well known as a region. So we believe we can, help change that. So all of that is very important to us. So we appreciate the feedback. We appreciate your help. It's a journey we're on.
Yeah.
A journey. Yeah.